It's the December of 2023, and it's the last month where the German version of the Gamepro magazine will ever go into print again, because they are stopping the release of it in a physical form. Like, obviously the website will probably continue to live on and stuff like that, but it will never be the same, even though it hasn't been the same for like 10 years since that's the time where I stopped reading it. But when I read the news, I still was a little bit sad, because the Gamepro magazine was such a big part of my childhood. So I just wanted to go on a little nostalgic trip about why I loved it so much, and just wanted to talk about it in an unscripted video. So don't expect me to go on a rant here and there sometimes where I'm talking about one single thing like way too much, or where I don't even know what to say, because, you know, doing videos where you just freely let your thoughts fly, you know, they can get pretty rambly. So I was a little kid, and what do you do as a little kid? You get bad games, because you don't know what a good game is. You look at the cover and you think like, wow, this is a cool cover. And it can be a cool cover, but it can be a really bad game. So I wanted to get a magazine. Back in the day, I only had Nintendo consoles like a Game Boy, a GameCube, stuff like that. So I was sometimes fine with getting the N Zone or the Big N magazine, both magazines that were mostly for Nintendo, or pretty much not just mostly, but they were 100% Nintendo magazines. But I also wanted to have a PlayStation 2. And before I got a PlayStation 2, I was like, hey, I want a magazine that covers all the consoles, even Xbox, even if I don't care about Xbox. So I went to the store and I was like, what do I pick? I don't know why I picked the Gamepro magazine. I think maybe it was because they had a DVD, they had cool covers, and they covered everything. So I was like, hey, you know, Gamepro sounds fun, right? And then I picked the magazine and was like, wow, this is a pretty good magazine. But, you know, nowadays, when was the last time you bought a magazine? You know, back in the day, magazines were the way to know what game is great and what game is not so great. And obviously, you know, nowadays, I'm the kind of person that says reviews don't matter. But as a kid, they do kind of matter, right? Like, you see a 90% rating and you think, wow, 90%, that's amazing. I want that game that has a 90% rating, because that means it's almost 100. That must be great. And I got the magazine. I was like, wait, I know which game will be good now, but it also taught me that not every game that gets a big rating is going to be a good game, because you kind of figure out the taste of the reviewers in the magazine, and you kind of want to not align your taste with them, but you kind of notice this person has more in common with my taste than this person. So you kind of give that person more of your own personal bias to, right? Like, if you see this person gave it 90% and this person gave it 20%, then I would rather go with the person giving it 20% than the person giving it 90%. If that makes sense. It makes sense, because that's how reviews work. Like, it's not a collective. Even though sometimes in the issues they would have like different people testing the same game to see like this person liked this much and that person liked it that much, but it would always only be for like bigger games, you know, to give more of a value to it. Because, you know, Resident Evil 4 got like tested by like 2 people, and one said like, oh, great game, and the other person also said great game, so it is a great game, right? Like, Resident Evil 4 is a pretty great game. But the highlight of every issue of the Gamepro magazine was the test track, which you can see in the background the whole time already. It's not the only highlight, but the test track was a mix of games that either were really bad or games that didn't got tested in time fully. For example, Ninja Gaiden got shown in a test track once, because the test issue that they've gotten, the copy of the game, came too late to make a full video about it, which then they had to do it next issue. But they wanted to show it off anyways, while saying, hey, this game is actually really damn good, except for the camera and the difficulty, even though they like the difficulty, but, you know, they warned people about it. Because, you know, mostly the test track was known for rather not so great games. In the background right now, you can see Blinks 2 for the Xbox. I never played Blinks, but I would like to one day. And the funny thing about it was, at first it was Andre who was the reviewer of the test track, and his humor, he didn't really put it too much into the test track. He was like, yeah, this game is like that, this game is like that, blah blah blah. But then when Henry, that you can see on the background right now kinda, took over the test track, he was like, hey, these games are so trashy, I'm gonna become the angry video game nerd, kinda in a way. Because this was also around 2004. He had such dry cut humor that it made you laugh with how dry of a voice he said the things he said. Like, I can't really quote it because it's mostly like German stuff, because obviously that was in Germany. I lived in Germany, I was a German kid, I'm still a German, not a kid anymore, but a German adult. And German humor getting translated to English doesn't work that well. And I would have to search for certain quotes and stuff like that. But his humor was like so funny, even to a kid, even though his humor was mostly geared towards adults. But he was also the person that kind of made my own taste in humor kind of go more around into a dry kind of way, where I think like, hey, you know, this guy is funny, I want to be like him. And his taste in video games was also pretty damn great. But recently, or this has already been a couple of years, I went into YouTube because I wanted to go on a nostalgic trip. And I wanted to rewatch some test checks on YouTube, where there's a channel called Past Archive, where this person is uploading like all the older GamePro magazine test checks, reviews, special stuff, obviously in German, so it won't really do much if you're not German. And you know, it has been one of those things, or it is one of those things where you mostly have to have the nostalgic feeling for it to really enjoy it. Even though I would recommend the test tracks from Henry to everyone who wants to see some older games and stuff like that. He sadly passed away, and it's one of those deaths that makes you sad, even though you never really personally knew that person. I had some posts on the forum where you kind of got into contact like that, but obviously that's not a very personal connection. And it just made me sad. It made me think, and part of my childhood kind of died, just like now when the Game magazine is kind of gone, even though I haven't thought about it in a fairly long time. And it's kind of sad that the physical medium of magazines, it went on a slow decline since the internet times. You know, like people back in the day knew it was coming one day, and it surprised me that it took this long, right? Like we're talking about the Game magazine, it was started in 2012, I think, and it survived 21 years. And the last 10 years of that, nobody would have thought that it would have went on this long, because back in the day it was code, it was culture. Like, I don't know how to say it, but you really, these people who had the old GamePro magazine, who wrote the stuff inside of them, Bernd Fischer, Henry Ernst, Kai, all these people that I've never met, they were funny. They knew how to write good reviews. It was like hip, but not too hip. It wasn't this kind of, you know, professional feeling that you got from them. It was like people who love video games writing about their love for video games. It wasn't like, oh, you know, this game has the 1080p and blah blah blah. The tests were full of flair and personality, instead of actually just listing like, oh, this game looks great and this game doesn't look great. It was like the people really put their thoughts into their tests themselves. And I would have said, you know, this was like, back in the day, this was like my YouTube in a way. Every month, I even got a subscription, you know. My parents were like, hey, you know, our boy likes this magazine that much, we buy him a subscription, because, you know, spending like 40 bucks a year to get your kid happy is probably a pretty good investment. And every month, when the mailman came, and I looked into the mailbox, and my parents already got it out of the mailbox, and I saw the GamePro in there, I was like, yay, I'm so happy. And I opened it up, I put in the DVD into the DVD player, and I watched the test track, then read the magazine, watched the rest of the DVD, and it was just a magical feeling. And you were like the person who knew about video games, kind of in a way. And it was just a very nice time. Something about that feeling is kind of missing when you watch reviews nowadays. Like, it just can't be regained. It's something of its own time that can never be replaced. I don't even watch reviews anymore, because as an adult you kinda don't need them anymore, I would say. Or maybe some people do need them, but I only wanted them as a kid, and eventually, you know, I stopped reading it. Not because I didn't know, or I didn't want to pay anymore, stuff like that, but everyone just kinda left, because you can't do the same job for 20 years, right? Like, people wanted to move on, the magazine maybe wanted to move on, wanted to appeal to different people and things like that. And eventually I didn't even open them anymore. I still had a subscription, but, you know, I just picked it up from the mailbox. I put it onto the rest of my magazines. You know, I can put in a picture here of them later if I edit the video, or will probably forget about it. I have every issue from 2004, starting 2004, to the end of 2012, and at that time I was like, yeah, that's a waste of money, you know. I'm pretty sure my parents also just kind of forgot to cancel it, and then it was just gone. And I haven't had a GamePro issue since that day, because everything just became worse. You know, when the people you really loved in magazine just kind of left, what can you do? And yeah, it ended like that. But something about the magazine was just still too magical, because the thing is, you know, this sounds like closing words already, but it's not the closing words yet. Also, remember E3? When E3 was like actually a thing, like nowadays E3s are not really a thing anymore. Like obviously you get the presentations and things like that, but it's just not the same anymore. Back when the GamePro was a thing, you know, it won't be one anymore, and I mean, the E3 wasn't really the same thing anymore anyways. Back in the day, you know, they went to Los Angeles to go into the expo, and they always had like these special videos. It was for the Gamescom. Back in the day, it was even called the Games Convention in Leipzig still, and then the Tokyo's Game Show, and the E3, and those were always the issues you always looked for the most, because E3 felt like an actual event. And even the Tokyo Game Show, when you were a fan of Japanese games, and the Games Convention mostly, yeah, it was not that special, but the DVD special was special because they showed you around the different expo grounds. And it was a different time, you know, like they had a section of like booth babes, where people still had like sexy ladies dressing up in skimpy outfits at their booth to show gamers, hey, we have some good games, but also cool women. You know, nowadays when I rewatched some of them, I was like, damn, it just changed since then. And the E3 issues were just the best, you know, like the new generation of gaming with the issue that showed the PlayStation 3, the revolution of Nintendo back in the day still. The 360 was already kind of revealed and everything. And that issue just, you know, the Brawl trailer was on there the next year. It was like, wow. Wowie. You know, seeing that stuff, like, so fresh. And nowadays, when a game gets revealed, you go on YouTube, you watch it live or you see it on YouTube. And the first E3 I watched live was 2008, which was, as a Nintendo fan, yeah, you know, that was one of the worst E3s in existence. But back in the day, I opened up the magazine, saw all these trailers, and was like, wow, I want a Wii. I want a PlayStation 3. Even though I didn't want a PlayStation 3 at that point yet. I was kind of like, yeah, there's gonna be a hard sell with that price. But I really wanted a Wii, and they had like this Wii special when the Wii was releasing, and I was like, well, I want a Wii. And I even got a Wii that Christmas, and you know, since it's almost Christmas time, I can tell how my mom still tells me how hard it was. Like, it was one of the hardest things in her life to get a Wii in 2006 on release day to make me happy. I wouldn't have minded if I didn't got one, but I got one, so I was a very happy kid for the rest of the year or in the coming year. And they just knew how to make you hype. Like, obviously nowadays there's this whole consumer meme like, oh, you're consuming. But back in the day as a kid, you know, it was something special to get something new. It was something special to get a new game. It was something special to see new consoles. Nowadays as an adult, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of hyped for games, but, you know, I won't, you know, flip out and have fake reactions and scream at my monitor unless other YouTubers do that and, you know, flip out. But as a kid, when you open up the DVD, saw a trailer for a new game like Brawl, and you saw Solid Snake and Meta Knight and stuff like that unveiled, it was like, holy moly, macaroni cheese with extra dippings. And yeah, and with age, you kinda also had the internet, like I said. You know, you had YouTube now to get your news, you had other sites to get your news, you had YouTube for gameplay, you didn't have to use a magazine anymore. Then all these people left, and I have to say, one of the best videos, I can show this, like, nowadays this store kind of gets called a scam, Akihabara, like Super Potato. Like, nowadays this is like the kind of store where people say like, oh, you know, it kind of got ruined, but back in the day this was like a video for the Tokyo Game Show where they didn't show the stands or the booths, they showed it in another video, but they were like walking around Akihabara and this is Henry, and they just wanted to show you how this was like the mecca for video games, old retro games, you know, a little bit here, McDonald's and homeless people in a park, you know, people say, you know, Japan is so much better than every other country, but even they have homeless people. You know, this meme where they're like, oh, green place in America, but lame, but green place in Japan, cool. But anyways, you know, that's not the point of the video. And here, Akihabara back in the day, full of retro video games, even though they weren't even that retro yet. And it was like the store like Super Potato or something like that. And nowadays, people always say if they go to Super Potato, it's just basically a generic retro gaming store. But back in the day, you know, this was like the store to have everything. When are they going to show the inside? Okay, that's like Gundam stuff. I think it starts here. And you know, when I saw this kind of stuff and the prices are like insanely low, in Japan gaming prices are insanely low anyways, like even if you go on eBay nowadays, I got my Xenogears Japanese version for 15 bucks. You know, but nowadays, you know, the retro gaming market is a whole different topic. But you know, seeing this video back in the day made me think, holy moly, I need to go to Japan. Look at Chrono Trigger, like it's literally sealed, 525. And the prices, it's like, if you went in here in 2004 and bought all of these, look, 780 yen, that's $5 or something. Like, it blew my mind as a kid. Like, they had all these amazing retro games. Oh, this video made me want to go to Japan so bad. Not just to buy games, but obviously, well, mostly for video games, actually. I wasn't even that much of a read back then. I didn't even watch anime that much because I was still a kid and only watched Pokemon, Doremi, Pretty Cure on TV. And yeah, these were always the issues where they went around booths and expos and things like that and just showed off the history of gaming. They also had like other special videos. Like they had a video about Steel Battalion. For people who don't know that, it's like a video game where you can buy like a whole mecha controller thing for like 200 bucks. And they had like a LAN party with it. They made a Halo LAN party. They had like these multiplayer videos on the DVD where it felt like actual Let's Plays in a way, but way shorter. You know, they weren't like playing through a game. They played the game together, and it was funny because the group was just such a nice feeling together. It made me really happy. And you know, it was, like I said earlier, it was like my YouTube. And sadly, that's gonna be gone. Even though it has been gone from my life for over 10 years. But yeah, you know, it still hurts me a little bit. I still have all these GamePros on my shelf here somewhere, all the DVDs, and I think, you know, this screams from, look at Paper Mario, 1,000 yen. You know, it screams for like a rewatch from these videos, obviously with sound and everything in the background. It wonders one color, like still sealed. It's one crystal, like these things. I mean, obviously Japanese, like I said, Japanese prices are still so low, but you know, watching this now makes me so hungry to go back in time, which will never be possible. Because, well, that's just not what it, you know, even Virtual Boy stuff, holy moly. It won't be possible to go back in time, you know? And it reminds me of greater times. You know, I sound like the most nostalgic freak right now, but I think, you know, there's no issue about thinking about the past when you also think about your future. You know, you can't just live in the past, even if you want to. And those are very expensive, or very, not expensive, what is the word? Very, you know what I mean. They are very important words, that's the thing. Even though, you know, I would have to listen to them myself because I'm the kind of person that would prefer to look into the past more than into the future. But look at that, Fire Emblem for the Super Nintendo. Okay, that's 15k, but that was probably sealed. In 15k yen, that's still not that much, to be honest. But yeah, you know, the GamePro magazine, I can't really say I will miss it too much because I haven't had it for 10 years. And at that point, it was already completely different. But I will still miss it. Odyssey. I only know the Odyssey from the Angry Video Game Nerd kinda, but you know, just seeing these little snippets of the test shack and these special videos again, you know, I can shortly show a little bit of the games convention. Hopefully they they even had like, this was like the way to it. This was like the funny thing, but this was like the actual look. There's the booth babes already right from the start, where it was around, wow, it's hunting season, the video game, and it was just the magazine. Like something about it was just so funny. I don't know, like no other magazine could really hit it. And even nowadays, I think like I said, I recently rewatched like some of the test check stuff. Okay, maybe I shouldn't show more booth babes. You know, they were actually kind of scantily clothed. And you know, it was like one of those times where you just had to be around. And one of the dreams I was had as a kid when seeing these things, wow, Galaxy, I think, was going to an E3. Nowadays, that dream is probably pretty much dead, because E3 will never return really. And I don't know why it always shows the video URL in the bottom left. But anyways, like at this point, I'm just thinking too much about the past. And hello, video? Okay, thanks. And you know, I could just sit here and just commentate the video, but obviously that's not the point. I just wanted to shortly talk about my favorite video game magazine of all time that will sadly never return, or will never be the same again. And again, Web Henry, you know, it's just kind of sad. But that's how life works. Old mediums will die out, new mediums like the internet will come and take their place. I have to say, obviously, I like the internet more. I can look for information whenever I want to. I don't have to watch, or I don't have to wait and then watch the DVD that comes once per month to see what's good or what's bad. But in a way, without the GamePro, I maybe wouldn't have the taste in video games that I would have nowadays. And maybe I wouldn't even play video games anymore. Even though I doubt that, but it was just giving me so much more about video games, the information, the different point of views. You know, and the thing is, I have one more story that will show the GamePro in a bad way though. There was a test in the GamePro about Driver 3. As a kid, I loved the Driver games. I had both of them for the PlayStation 1. Driver 1 and Driver 2. And the bad thing about Driver 3 was that it was bugged out of its mind. And they didn't talk about it in their review. I still remember they gave it an 86% rating from 100. 86% for a very bugged game. And you know what I found on the flea market? Fairly close to release of the game, is Driver 3. And I was telling my parents, can I have this game, can I have this game? Normally I wasn't allowed to have games that were like, it was an USK rating of 16 plus. But I really wanted to have it since I loved Driver 1 and 2. And eventually I would have maybe gotten Driver 3 anyways, even without the good rating. And people on the forum were like, hey, this game is super duper buggy. Why did you guys give it 86%? That's not okay. This game is way too buggy, and it's also not that great to deserve 86% anyways. And they took a statement that they got paid by Atari to kinda look over those things. They got literally paid to give a good rating. So in a way you would say the trust is broken and stuff like that. But I think the way that they came out of it, I didn't really care too much as a kid. Like, even nowadays, would I care too much? Like, as a kid, you don't really care. You were like, yeah, okay, it can happen. Mistakes happen. And in a way, the whole industry was like that, right? And it's probably, I mean, nowadays, you don't even need to do that anymore. Like, nowadays, you give money to an influencer, and he will probably talk about your game, and that will be enough. Like, it still happens. Back in the day, it happened. But, you know, it was always funny to me when I saw, like, other people try to defend stuff like IGN, like, they said, oh, we are not getting paid. But if it happens to the GamePro magazine, it happens to all the publishers of, you know, video game websites, other magazines. Maybe there were a few magazines that didn't really got paid off sometimes, but, you know, it was the way it was sometimes. And that maybe makes me sound like a parasocial person, but I was a kid. Nowadays I think, yeah, where's the publisher that want to give me money? Any placement give us that want to give me a placement so I can sell you energy drinks for gamers? Nice feat. No, I wouldn't take placements like that. This will totally not age well in a few years when I get a placement with, I don't even know, what's an energy drink that does like protein shakes? I don't even know. But, you know, that's how it always went. When people can get more money, they will get sellouted. But I forgave the GamePro, you know? Like, it wasn't the end of the world for me. You know, like other people would say, this journalism is now untrustworthy. But I was just, yeah, I'm a kid. Please, I just want to see funny video games. But yeah, I'm no talking too much about random stuff. But I just wanted to talk about it. I had to get it out of my chest. You know, maybe you had Video Games Magazine too as a kid. Maybe you can tell me about some of your memories in the comments if you want to. And with that, I will can. Oh, Mahjong. I love this kind of Mahjong back in the day. My mom played this all day long on AOL and stuff like that. Where it wasn't like this. Where it wasn't like this Mahjong where you fight against other people. It's like you. It's like solitaire in a way. It's solitaire Mahjong. But yeah, again, good night and a very good morning. Good night.